So my next speaker is a sales manager with 10 years experience in intralogistics field. He brings practical experience with backed with the aerospace engineering degree and the prime over a P6 project scheduling qualification. He currently works as the regional sales manager for Peach Intralogistics. So Umer Saleem today will lead us through the technologies which can help reduce e-fulfillment challenges in the digital age. Over to you, Saleem.
Hello, good afternoon everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, my name is Umer Saleem. I'm a regional sales manager based in the Middle East, but also looking at the Southeast Asia region market, which for us is quite strategic. I'd like to start the presentation with a video. So less of me talking and some exciting screenshots. So we play the some questions, please do ask me offline, and we can take it from there. Moving on to the presentation, I'll speak a little bit about the company and then also the technologies, which is the subject matter, just for you to understand who are Fives, what do we do. So, next one. Basically a timeline. There's a lot of talk recently about millennials, what's going on in the future. We do understand the history, and also the history of our company. Established in 1956, we were the pioneers and inventors of shoe sort technology, as well as the cross-belt technology, as well as the singulation technology, which is what I'll be talking to you about. Not specifically our products, but market in general, which was essentially going to help decision makers in operations and in the boardrooms for how to meet the e-fulfillment challenges. And more recently, 2014 to current day, a lot of R&D work, which I can explain in detail. the main fulfillment challenges, the e-fulfillment, I see packages are getting smaller. You know, I do understand the Indonesian market being quite heavily manufacturing based. There's always going to be a need of heavy cargo, and I see heavy duty cargo and pallet form. But when you're speaking about, say, FMCG, or even those manufacturing plants, if they want to become a seller or open a revenue stream at the front end of their warehouse, packages are getting smaller. I've seen globally in the last, since I've been in the industry 10, 11 years, you know, technology going from 1 ton, 1.5 ton pallet based to maximum maybe 20, 25 kilograms, mainly because of the e-com boom that has been experienced in the last decade or so. Controlling the shipping. Is 3PL dying? Is 4PL the next big thing? Being in charge of your own shipping, especially if you're entering the e-commerce field, is quite a big problem that I see globally when companies are talking about their issues going into e-fulfillment. Focusing on the fulfillment itself. How is it going to be sorted? How is it going to be you know, identified? Where are the bottlenecks? We'll be speaking about in the next few slides. The high demands. You know, a few years ago there was no such thing as Singles Day. Even White Friday, Black Friday was a big thing in the Western world, but you know, in the Middle East and as well as Asia, these are big demands that need to be met, right? So packages are generally getting smaller, high demands, and focusing on fulfillment, as well as you as a company, is what I try to explain when I'm in boardroom meetings, is focusing on too many products to sell. There's an indefinite number of different varieties you can have, sizes. So do try to work out the USP for your company and try to not limit, but initially when you're moving into automation, limit the type of SKUs you will expect to grow at, or move at high volume. And then this is where automation does really make sense. And understanding the packaging costs. You know, how much would it be to do your own packaging? How much is it to add this as a USP for your business? Do you want to have your company logos being branded or not? So there's costs involved with that. This is a really interesting slide. I don't mean this to be PowerPoint by death, but just a simple table at the bottom. And if there's any questions, please do catch me offline. Generally, the traditional logistics fulfillment routes and the order takes, you see, arriving quite regularly. A lot of batch picking that can be predicted. This is changing globally. It's irregular and a lot of wave picking. And by uses of software, this can be implemented. The nature of the stock replenished generally within the schedule when there are replenishment times. But with the e-commerce and e-orders coming in, this is fully fragmented. Size per order generally has been quite bulky, and this has moved into much smaller sort of sizes, like I just discussed earlier. The SKUs involved can be quite few previously and move into quite many as you evolve the business. And the number of orders has been quite less, moving to quite high, the high demands that I mentioned, and also the delivery schedules. You know, me as a millennial, you may laugh at me, but it was an example I gave yesterday. I don't want to be going to, this is maybe just my personal view, but when I came to the hotel, I didn't even want to go to the Grand Mall, which is opposite the hotel I'm staying at. I'd rather order something online and get it delivered. Now, is that because I don't want to speak to someone on the phone? I don't know, but that's just the nature of the young generation. And I think it's going to grow more and more less on face-to-face sort of interface and move into the AI and the artificial world. E-commerce, the need for the smart digitized sorting and tracking. This was a study done by Material Handling Institute in 2018, showing that generally, what I've seen in the last 10, 11 years, businesses were looking at maybe a 1 year or 2 year ROI. But when you're looking at e-commerce and the costs involved, a lot of companies have now moved into a 5-year return on investment and forecasting for 5 years. That also is for your growth patterns and basically looking at your historical data. So one bit of advice I see, and maybe I could pass on, is look at more into the future of what could happen and how that could, how you can update your processes in the near future for that to be matched, and it's not such a big radical change in a few years' time. Customer demands, I mentioned 73% are requiring extremely fast, challenging delivery times. That is going on. And hiring of qualified workers. This was a very interesting discussion in the presentation before, where, there's more automation and robotics mean less people are working. This is quite an interesting subject, because for me, I don't think so. I think generally, the operators and the warehouse staff need to be better qualified and better skilled. Okay, there's also other intangible bits of information that you may not read in the news every day, where in the Western world, because of the e-com coming in, new mothers that have just recently had a child were able to go back to work as just delivering packages. So these are things that maybe you don't read in the news every day, because it's quite positive and pro e-com. So 20, 100, 200 packages arrive at the residence the evening before, and between, say, 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. the next day, the mother is free to just drive around the city and deliver at her ease. So these are the other pros which don't always come out in the press. And I'd like to show the second video, which is basically a technology called cross-belt sorting. There's basically a cross-belt sorter. Generally, if you, in my experience, if you've got like more than 5,000 to 6,000 items that you're handling per hour, automation doesn't make sense. This can also be for less than 5,000 pieces per hour, but ultimate flexibility and reliability. I fully understand that the market is growing here. It might not be ready for this technology, but I strongly feel it is going to come in the nearer future. You can see the different types of unit loads that are being handled, higher accuracy. Envelopes and parcels also handled with the same technology, going into envelopes or envelopes and documents going into parcel bags or poly bags. It can go from 50 grams or 150 grams if you're legal for trade. I'm not sure if it's a big requirement in Indonesia, up to potentially 80, 85 kilograms. Now in the conventional way, this would be done manually, a lot of accuracy issues. You can see different benefits of such technology. Also, different shoots. There's an entire different science behind this when it comes to trajectory, making sure that the 5 iPhones are not before the 142-inch flat screen TV. And also the final video, the third video. Even though I mentioned packages are getting smaller and SKUs are generally the actual size is dimensionally smaller, there's a really big requirement that we've seen in the Western world for the non-conveyables as well. So anything that's more than 25, 30 kilograms, which are described as the uglies, or you may need to do sort manually, is actually done by using simple sorting technology. So you can imagine, if there's any warehouse managers or operations managers, just to move these items around would take maybe 2 to 3 staff. You can still have those staff. I'm not saying you need to sack them, but maybe they can go into the controls room, better motivation, for the operators and the workers, as well as in maintenance, or even doing QA/QC checking at the front, upstream or downstream. One of my favourite ones, like a double pallet going in. Even if you've got an area where there's empty pallets, and it's just a simple way. And you know, the cross-belt technology, say, you know, for say 3,000, 4,000 parcels or items, that's per hour. Generally, the ROI makes sense over 4 or 5 years for that. If you need generally something a little bit smaller, like a smaller sort of footprint with the Genie Flex type of non-conveyables. We're not talking millions and millions of dollars of investment, you know, but we are talking about operational excellence and moving the current sort of operations you may have into the modern era, as well as the benefits that you get from that. One big thing for automation companies around the world, even for me, is always the environment and CSR. So what we try to do is basically get the cells on the cross-belt track, right? And there's a number of cells per hour that are moving around, which is generally not the same as your throughput. So if you do need 2,000, 3,000 items per hour sorted, you'll have slightly more cells moving just because of the simple statistics associated with it. 92% of the materials that we use are recyclable, 99% from recycled aluminium for the sort of foundations and the structure, as well as lighter rails and using you know, generally recycled material. This is based on the previous models and then the new model coming in, and this is also sometimes a strong message when it comes to the CSR philosophy of what you're getting. And I'll just move finally on to the last slide. Sorry, I've rushed along very fast. I hope everybody understood what I've said. Has understood? Yeah. Okay, great. Ensuring that the current manual operations and forecasts are fully reviewed. More often than not, I've been in meetings with, say, high-level, senior-level, white-collar staff sitting in the boardroom, but they don't fully understand what is going on the ground floor. You know, even sometimes where there's been like an example of the number of items handled in a day. You know, okay, no, I think we're doing 5,000. Yeah, let's do 5,000. But then the data shows it's actually 9,000 because somebody forgot to add into the spreadsheet or into the database a few sort of, you know, peaks that were handled on the day, on the fly, and they weren't captured going into the senior management reviews. How important is quality? You know, if you are a courier, parcel, manufacturing sort of operations company, and you're sending out your sort of packages, do you really want to see the parcels and the items damaged? Or do you care about the quality side, which sometimes with, you know, cheaper technologies you get cheaper results? The historical data and reviewing the correct data. It's all good and easy to say, look, we're going to look at some big data analysis, we're going to data mine, we're going to get rid of, you know, the anomalies, but are you looking at the right data? Is an interesting point. And also the realistic growth figures. Everybody wants to be growing at 100, 200% per year, but realistically, what is the growth that you're planning potentially for the next 5 years, as opposed to the next 2 or 3 years? And please, I would recommend, you know, start with small. Maybe an area of the warehouse or an area of the operations that you've got, and just see if, I'm not saying you need to spend 5, 10, 15, $20 million straight away. No, just spend 10% of that and see what operational benefit is coming to the organization. And also, it gives you a chance to give good training to your operators as well. Review the CapEx and more importantly the OpEx. Sometimes I've seen the OpEx gets completely ignored and people are just talking CapEx, CapEx, CapEx. So reviewing the different operational costs and the returns on that, and the technology ensuring is adaptable for the future. You know, we're saying parcels are getting smaller globally. We're saying that everybody wants to have their items the same day, or same next day, same hour. But how, if you were to implement such a system, how does that affect your operation? It could be, I'm just throwing it out there as a wild boomerang. Maybe next year, those in the FMCG business, 80% of the stock is less than 8 kilograms. But if you're already invested in pallet handling or pallet ASRS systems, you know, where do you stand and what are the reverse engineering techniques for that? And the correct operational and maintenance training of your staff as well. A key point which I've already described. You know, a little bit of my experience coming into the industry, I really felt sorting technology when I first started working was a dying technology, and I was wrong. Because it's really been revived since the e-com boom. You know, there weren't really many companies that were spending too much on, let's say 10 years ago, on sorting technology and small package sort of sorting technology. But that's really been incorrect in the last 5-6 years. Our company has grown a lot. We've worked in e-com, food and beverage, FMCG, manufacturing, spare parts, you know, for aerospace applications or even different automotive spares. And it's really interesting to see, you know, the different industries, the different issues and the different processes that they have. For example, in aerospace, every second the plane is on the ground is thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? You don't want to get that wrong sort of component or the wrong resin to the maintenance engineer, and he needs to wait another 15 minutes for the system to bring back the correct item. Moving into the pharma industry, where there's a lot of strong requirements for recalling and recollecting, you know, because of the Food and Drug Authority's regulations, in case there's been an incorrect batch that has been issued. And yeah, that's pretty much it from me. So I hope that was a productive, insightful presentation. I've not taken up too much time. And are there any questions, please? I was loud and clear.
Any questions for Umer? You have a question?
Hi, Umer. Assalamualaikum. Well, we are colleagues, so it's not really fair for me to throw questions. But I think since nobody is asking, I'm just asking one question only. What would be the primary driver for company to invest such advanced technology or sorting technology?
I think globally I've seen e-commerce driving it. And if companies are moving into the e-com platforms, yeah, the demands that are required are not the same as the replenishment demands for a regular store or like a regular brick and mortar store where they're selling, right? There are seasonal peaks in those, in that sort of application and that avenue as well. But when you're dealing with, you know, it could be in a few weeks, say the largest Chinese e-com player in the world, in China, brings out a new e-com, you know, buy one get one free sale. That's going to happen in a week's time. You know, you don't have time to speak to your entire supply chain that might be the rest of the world to say, guys, I need to get all this stuff in-house and develop it. So I think that's going to be a very big driver. Obviously e-commerce, which is pretty obvious. Also, I think having a main distribution center near an airport, like a hub or a seaport, and then regional automated centers or regional sort of hubs, catering from the main port area. Why do I say that? I mean, there's one client of ours based in North America, and the code for their projects are generally the airport code, which is closest to, you know, where the warehouse will be. So I see air cargo driving everything forward. There'll still be seaports, there'll still be shipping. I'm not saying that's going out the window, but I think because everyone is used to, or will soon get used to, high service level agreements that have never been reviewed before, because of this, I think there will be an increase in air cargo traffic movement. Has to be, for people to get, you know, for example, I'm flying back to Dubai tonight. I might want to order something and expect it tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Now, which vendor can give me that? Even if I have to pay 5 dirhams or €1 extra, I wouldn't mind doing that, knowing that I'm going to get it the next day. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's break for lunch, and we'll resume back in 12 minutes.